Hi, this is Frank Radis for Red Touch Media, and this is our continuing series on the future of content. And I'm talking to James Kanatas, who is the head of programming for the new Rey Network. So this is a pretty amazing job you've got. Tell me a little bit about what it's like to launch this new network and work with Robert Rodriguez.
It's been a dream. You know, programming a network not around what the advertisers are from the beginning, but programming around Robert's style and sensibility and the psychographic of what young people are really responding to has been really, I think, a unique opportunity.
Tell me a little bit about some of the programming on Rey.
So it's a lot of what you'd expect from Robert Rodriguez. We've got about 2/3 of the network is acquired series, X-Files, Dark Angel, and Starsky and Hutch, and about 1/3 is acquired movies, great John Carpenter movies like Escape from New York, more recent movies like Pulp Fiction, Kill Bill, and then about 10% of the grid. So actually, what's left is the original series. So we've got 4 originals this year. From Dusk Till Dawn is our first flagship scripted series. After that, we've got Matador, produced by Kurtzman and Orsi, premiering in the summer. We've got Lucha Libre, produced by Mark Burnett in the back half of the year, and a subculture docu-series produced by Vice Mexico and Scott Gurney, the EP of Duck Dynasty.
So anyone who's familiar with Robert clearly knows what Dusk Till Dawn is all about. Tell me a little bit about Matador.
Yeah, Matador is it's a lot of fun. It's a guy who's a soccer player by day, secret agent by night, and the word Matador, of course, means killer in Spanish, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
And Lucha Libre, tell me a little bit about that, because the American audience may not be too familiar with that, but it's certainly something that the Hispanic audience knows about.
Sure. The interesting opportunity with Lucha Libre is we went and are partnering directly with AAA Lucha Libre out of Mexico and combining a lot of the great mythological underpinnings of Lucha Libre with Mark Burnett's kind of live event producing savvy. And a lot of the creative cues we're taking come from other universes than wrestling entirely. I'm going to stay mum on where those creative influences are coming, but we're going to do a lot of fun things with the mythology, with the masks, really transporting to the U.S. Those things that make Lucha Libre unique, and we'll be tweaking the things that we think will help it resonate with the U.S. audience where it hasn't before.
So you have a partner of Univision, and so there's a sort of an inherent Hispanic level of thought that goes into what it is that you do, but it's not a Hispanic network, it's an English language network. How does that impact your thought process as you go to put together the grid?
Univision's a great partner. They run all of our distribution sales. They run our broadcast operations and various other kind of functions. But really, it was their desire to largely kind of stand back from the programming and a lot of the marketing so that Rey would be an incremental value to them. The goal is not for Rey and Unimas to compete, but for Rey to really have its own unique voice and be totally incremental. To the second part of your question about how Hispanic is the network, how Hispanic is it not, I think the idea with Rey is we're sort of beyond borders at this point. I think if you want to appeal to young America and America as a whole, you need to make programming that looks like America, specifically young America, and it needs to be made by people behind the camera who reflect that same kind of demographic. So I think when you look at the way Robert's always made movies and the way we're making series, it's just in who we're getting to make the stuff. That's what it comes down to.
So the line that most resonates about the network, it seems to me, is that it's kick-ass network. How does that reflect in the programming?
Yeah, kick-ass is something that we like to say, and my mother probably doesn't like me to say. But to me, a lot of what Rey is it's the style and the spirit of the heroes that Robert tends to celebrate in his movies. These guys who are sort of mavericky, right? What does that mean? you got these guys who really live by their own code, right? They're rebels, they're outsiders, they're Mulder and Scully, which is otherwise a police procedural, but you've got these characters who are the outcasts, and they have their own code. So for me, what a kick-ass network means is a network that celebrates stories and characters who live their own way, and we celebrate that.
Now, also reflected in that sort of style is these theme weeks that you will have from some of the movies that you've also acquired. Tell me about some of that.
Yeah, we've got a lot of kung fu movies from the Shaw Brothers collection, and a lot of the themes that are so interesting in these movies are themes like vengeance. So we're playing with a lot of those themes that we think resonate really well, as well as things like, well, go ahead. Rip your heart out, Valentine's Day. Yeah, that's the way El Rey would celebrate Valentine's Day, is with Fright Night and Dracula.
So clearly, you need to be thinking as a programmer in a completely different way than anyone has ever programmed a network before. You need to be thinking about, clearly, what is the brand and how would the brand do it, but what is the audience and what do they expect from the brand of Robert Rodriguez?
Yeah, staying true to Robert and what he tends to make and be into is always part of it. But yeah, it's about counter programming. We're small right now. And the way we're going to get noticed is by being a little bit noisy, and we've got to try some crazy things.
Congratulations, and this is Frank Radis with James Kanatas, the head programmer for the El Rey Network for the Red Touch Media series, The Future of Content. See you next time.